Like you said, I'm Jen Crump. I've been in law enforcement for about 16 years. I started at the Oakland Police Department in California. Was laid off in 2010 when they did a force reduction. And my wife is from New Orleans, so at that point we decided to move to the South. And we've been in Mississippi since 2011. I spent about 11 years with the Gulfport Police Department right there on the Gulf Coast, or some people call it the landmass, between New Orleans and Mobile. With Gulfport, started out on patrol, very quickly went to narcotics with my experience from Oakland. Was a narcotics investigator, undercover cop, and then went to criminal investigations, where I spent about another 4 years as an investigator, doing everything from credit card fraud to capital murder and everything in between. I got very lucky, I didn't think so at the time, but I was voluntold to go to a forensic interviewer class, which is learning how to interview children who are victims of sexual or violent crime, or witnesses to. And not something I thought I was going to do in my career, but it made me a very good interviewer. So it really helped with my interview skills with suspects, witnesses, victims. And so I promoted to sergeant, went to patrol, was a patrol sergeant for about 2 years before I got what I thought was my dream job, which was the sergeant in training. I was the officer in charge of the training division for the Gulfport Police Department. That was the job I was vying for the whole time. So I got in there, oversaw all of our in-house training, was liaison with our academy when we sent our recruits, oversaw our field training program. But I had also taken the lieutenant's test. And so I promoted 3 months later to lieutenant, and even though I tried to convince them that a lieutenant needed to be the officer in charge of training, they did not agree with me. So I went back to patrol, and I was a lieutenant on over a shift of patrol. So I was the officer in charge of my shift, and I was night shift, so I had 3 sergeants under me, and then about 15 officers. But I still kept that training mentality. I've had that my whole career. Before I was in law enforcement, I was actually a firefighter for 15 years, or about 15 years. And so I've got almost 30 years in public safety, kind of around it all. So I've always been part of training. That to me is if we stop trying to learn more, that's when we need to start thinking about retiring, because we're going to be unsafe. We're not keeping up to date with the trends and the changes. Policing has changed significantly, in the 16 years that I've been in it, but even more so in the last probably like 3 or 4 years. And so if we're refusing to stay up to date or resisting that change, and not keeping up with the trends, then that's where we run into the problems we do with our communities. One of the things that we do outside of law enforcement is my wife and I are the ambassadors in Central Mississippi for Ainsley's Angels, which you guys have up here. So, we're really fortunate to have that community connection, and where we can instantly, we've been staying with one of our friends here that's the ambassador up here, and we've instantly been thrown into the community and doing runs and workouts with her friend group, and seeing how the community has come together and supports that organization. It's something that is near and dear to our heart. So I think that's pretty much it for me in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Jen. And again, we have one mic, so we're going to be handing it back and forth to each other. That's okay. So why are you interested in the police chief position here, and why is Sandy, Oregon, the right place for you?
So I'm at the point in my career, I'm currently the Director of Public Safety, Chief of Police for Hines Community College District in the Jackson, Mississippi area. And I'm at a point in my career where taking that next step, is totally doable. And looking at the long term of, we're not staying in Mississippi. So, you know, where do we feel most at home? My family, my parents used to live up in Vancouver, so I'm very familiar with the Portland area. We've got some really good friends that tomorrow we'll go stay with them before we fly back out on Sunday. But, you know, what draws us to Sandy is, for me, it's the community. You know, it's working for an agency that is an integral part of the community and has that ability to be part of the community. Smaller towns, they afford the police department and other public safety agencies to really be part of the community. You know, one of the drawbacks with larger agencies is, in larger towns, is you lose that intimate connection with your community members. You know, so the Pacific Northwest, we're very active people. You know, and so for us, being able to get out and, you know, like yesterday we went up to Mount Hood and we did some hiking, and, you know, we were talking about it, I was like, we went up to Trillium Lake to go hike, just hike around the lake. But I'm like, we passed like, I don't know, 15, 20 other trails we probably could have taken, you know, 10 minutes from here. You know, so that's a huge draw. You know, is being able to be outside all the time and get out, make connections with the community, and not just be the face that, you know, oh, I recognize that's the, you know, police chief, or that's, you know, officer so-and-so, or we're actually making that connection, you know, being involved in community events, you know, and being part of the community. And Sandy's, that's your vibe. I mean, that's the vibe. Everything, you know, we're Sandy. This is what we do. You know, we want, you know, you have to want, especially now, in for law enforcement, you have to want officers that want to be engaged. You have to want a police department that wants to be engaged, because we can't do it alone. I mean, so, you know, for us, the timing is perfect, because I've still got, you know, 10, 15 years that I can commit to, you know, an area or agency, you know, as, you know, there is a little bit of a double-edged sword with that as well, because smaller agencies, you know, if you have a chief that stays in that position, it limits the opportunity for those coming up behind. You know, so feeling that vibe and figuring out, you know, get the, you know, ball moving forward, but developing the officers behind us so that they are willing to and able to, you know, take on that position. So.
Please tell us about your last or most recent job. What did you enjoy about it the most, and how did you decide it was the right time to move on to a new opportunity?
I feel like I covered some of that one before. Like I said, I'm currently the Director of Public Safety and Chief of Police for Hines Community College, which is a kind of a low-income community college district in the Jackson area. There's 6 campuses, and up until I got hired in a couple months ago, they were operating as 6 different police departments. So I kind of joke, because there's 2 chiefs and an assistant chief that work for me, so I'm the chief of chiefs, I guess. But my task and my role there has been to consolidate those 6 departments under one umbrella. The community college has gone under a one college concept. Each campus is very different. There's 2 that are residential. And one is a historically black college, and then the other one is not. And so, and then the other 4 campuses are commuter campuses. So each campus is very unique. And trying to get those, you know, those departments to operate under one and still meet the needs of each campus has been pretty interesting. But you know, we're moving the ball forward. We're running and gunning. Sometimes I'm like, you know, I ask the other 2 chiefs and the assistant chief, I'm like, you guys good? And they're like, yeah, we're good. We got it. We're coming with you. You know, and so I've really enjoyed helping them kind of see the broader picture, because for them, they've spent, both of the two chiefs have been there for almost 10 years, and so they've spent their careers looking at it as 6 different entities, and now they're like, well, this makes a lot more sense if we do it as one. I'm like, yeah, you guys are working on the same budget, so, you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I've started to, my whole goal, when I took the position was to make sure that those guys knew the vision moving forward. If I stayed, great. If I don't stay, they can pick up the ball and keep moving it forward. That's kind of my leadership style. And so for me, it's been a great opportunity because it's developing them as leaders, and hopefully one of them, will be able to step into my role if I do end up leaving. So that's one of the things I've really enjoyed about that job. Prior to that, I was the Director of Public Safety and over Communications at University of Mississippi Medical Center Police and Public Safety Department. Very long name. And that was my first opportunity to be over a communications center. And I've always, almost 30 years in public safety, and I'm like, I can never be this budget. I just don't have the multitasking skills. And so for me, it was a great opportunity to recognize the professional staff that works for the police department. I think too often, especially as sworn personnel, we kind of forget that there's this whole support staff that really is who runs the department. The chiefs and the command staff can make these decisions, but if somebody's not there behind us to support that moving forward with the daily donuts kind of task of it, then we struggle. And so that afforded me the opportunity to really learn how to manage not only officers, because there's a little bit of difference between managing police officers that we do what we do, and then managing the professional staff at the same time. So for me that was excellent learning opportunities.
So what do you see as the role of the police chief in a city and in the community? And how do you plan to fill that role here in Sandy? And what will be your approach to help bring the community together?
The law enforcement today, and especially in a small community like Sandy, it's more than just law enforcement. The police chief is more than just the head of the agency. We have to be active members in our community. We have to be approachable, transparent, and we have to be able to collaborate with other emergency management, fire department, city agencies, public and private entities, and really understand that law enforcement and the problems that we're facing, and some of the problems that I know are issues for the community, are social issues that we can't just police our way out of. And so we've got to work together and work together with different community groups, resources, county, state, local. I've worked throughout my career. I've worked on task forces and multidisciplinary teams. So I've spent a career of making those connections with and trying to come up with different creative ways to kind of handle the problems at hand. Each community is a little bit different. There's no one size fits all for law enforcement. And so while there might be some great ideas that come out, from other communities, they may not work here, but you've got to be able to connect with your community and run those brainstorming sessions and say, hey, all right, this is what I've done over here, and I do bring some outside experience that maybe we haven't considered here, and then to have somebody come back and be willing to say, no, that is not going to work, chief, and this is why, so for me, it's we have to be, I keep saying, we have to be part of the community. The police chief can't just sit off to the side and say, I'm the chief, and this is what I do, but, you know, we have to be out there making those connections, listening to, you know, groups like you guys where, you know, it's, you know, we can go down a path and we can follow, you know, the playbook, so to speak, but if it's not working, we have to be able to, you know, take that feedback and be willing to, you know, kind of set our egos aside and say, okay, they're right, this is not working. You know, sometimes we get too close to the issue and we lose track of it, and you know, so having that honest feedback and be willing to take it, for me, that's kind of the key to it all.
And just in the interest of time, we're gonna adjust on the fly here and just stop at 3 questions. The first 3, so not your fault, Jan.
Little wordy.
No, it's all good.
Not your fault, but
It's
we
all
want to
good.
have time at the end for you folks to interact informally, so.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up, I think, Patrick. So this is Patrick Husky, going to give a brief, quick, what we call oral resume, and then we'll jump into a few questions.
Thank you, Tim. So yeah, my name is Patrick Husky. Currently, my job currently is the Portland area commander for the Oregon State Police, and so this is my area. I started my career with the Oregon State Police in 1998. What I did at that time, I was going to college. I was working on my criminal justice degree at Western Oregon, and we had a cadet program at that time. So I signed up for seasonal employment, which gave me the opportunity to work seasonally and still complete my college degree. After I did that, I took a stint at our headquarters in a professional staff position, and that was to fill my time before I got hired full-time in July of 2000. Throughout my seasonal career with the Oregon State Police, I had the opportunity to work out of the Dalles, Madras, Astoria, Albany, mainly with fish and wildlife enforcement. State parks enforcement was what we had. It was an unarmed position, which taught me how to use my brain and my words, and that's super important in law enforcement. So in 2000, I went to Klamath Falls, which was the furthest place that I could find from home. Basically, the directions were to go to California, turn around, and come back, and the first city you see is Klamath Falls. Had no idea what I was getting into then, but had 3 years there. I was part of our layoff group in 2003, and went to, when I got laid off, I went to the city of West Linn, where I was a police officer there for approximately about 4 or 5 months before I ended up getting recalled back to the Oregon State Police. When I did that, I went to the Capitol Mall and served there for probably about 5 or 6 months before I was then transferred again to the Portland area command. I worked patrol here in Portland. I worked here at Government Camp. Government Camp is its own work site based out of the Portland area command. So I spent a lot of time in my career right here on this corridor, working with all of you, working with the city, and working with our Clackamas County partners. In 1998, I was blessed with the opportunity to go to a detective position on our High Interdiction Task Force, which was a federal task force housed out of Portland, and we were connected with Homeland Security. So I was basically a task force officer with Homeland Security investigations. Spent 5 years with them, got promoted to a patrol sergeant here at Government Camp, and spent about a year up here before then getting transferred back to our headquarters in Salem, where I was the drug enforcement section sergeant, where I was in charge of all of our interdiction response. I had 3 detectives under me. We worked heavily with our canine patrol assets and managed all the programs that go along with drug enforcement, to include the clandestine lab. We had statewide response capabilities, and I was basically traveling all over the place. I did that for 5 years. Realized I wasn't home that much, and opportunity to promote to lieutenant came by. And I got it, and I was at our general headquarters for 2 years running our programs for the patrol division. And that included everything from tow contracts to establishing our ignition interlock device program, DUI enforcement, our canine folks, any program that goes along with the patrol division we had. I sat on 13 different committees with ODOT. I discovered real quickly when I started going to those meetings that all of those different branches within those state agencies don't communicate with each other. So I had to work really hard trying to help facilitate conversations back and forth with these groups of folks, and had a great time. I enjoy working with teams. In 2019, I was blessed with the opportunity to come back to Portland, and this is where I've been ever since. 2019 has been the Portland area commander. I'm in charge of all operations within Clackamas County, Multnomah County, and effective July 1, since I've been doing such a great job, the department decided to bless me with the additional county of Columbia County.
Right around the corner.
Right around the corner. That was chosen because I can drive there quicker, is what I was told. Obviously, nobody has driven through rush hour Portland traffic from this side to that side in quite a while. So I'm coming up on, when you're talking PERS retirement, I'm coming up on that 25-year mark for being able to retire. So I've started looking at what my second career is going to be, and this opportunity came by, and it was really hard to pass up. It's in my backyard. I live right across the river in Corbett. I'm 20 minutes from the city limits, so this is a real hard opportunity to pass up.
So why are you interested in the police chief position here in Sandy, and why is Sandy, Oregon the right place for you?
So as I mentioned, I'm looking now for my second career. I think one of my favorite patrol areas in my area command is the Sandy corridor, by far. It's beautiful. The people here are great. I've always enjoyed it. It just feels right? It's close to home. I've got a long time left. I'm healthy, so I'm looking forward to another 5-10 years of service in law enforcement. I enjoy serving. It's a calling for most people. I think anybody in law enforcement will tell you that it's a calling, and I feel comfortable doing that job. So I feel like coming here and working with all of you is a great opportunity. It's something I would look forward to.
So Patrick, tell us a little bit more about your current job here with OSP, and what did you enjoy, or what do you enjoy most about it? How did you decide now is the right time to move on to a new opportunity?
So I'll answer kind of backwards. Again, I'm coming up on that 25-year mark, so every PERS employee's dream is to double dip. We all know that, right? So that's an opportunity. I obviously want to set myself and my family up for the best financial situation we can. Within my agency, even though we're a large agency, there's basically zero opportunities for me to promote this time. Everybody that's holding a rank above me is more likely than not younger than me, and so there's really no opportunity for me to do anything different in my career with OSP right now. And that's fine. I work with some great people. They're doing great jobs. Love that agency. The bittersweet thing about this is I've got a good job. I've got great people. So it's easier for me to stand up here and talk to y'all because I know I have a good job to go back to if this doesn't work out. But going back on my career, I've been blessed. I've worked in all 3 divisions of the Oregon State Police, Fish and Wildlife Patrol, and or drug enforcement, which falls under criminal investigations unit. So I would say that each job I've had has been better than the last. You'll hear a lot of managers talk about the best days of their career, which were being a patrol officer, being a patrol sergeant, being a detective, and those are all great, but they're all different. And they really are apples and oranges when you start comparing what you do on a daily basis in each of those positions. But I'll say that what I've enjoyed the most is working on teams. And each of those positions, you're working on a team. Whether you're just a solo patrol officer working your shift in your area, you're still a part of that whole team. You're part of the city. We've got a great group of law enforcement agencies in Clackamas County. The partnerships that I've built throughout my career in Clackamas County and Multnomah County, the ability to just grab my phone and call somebody if I don't know how to do something is gold. It's absolute gold. We have, right across the river is Multnomah County here for us, right? So I have partners there. We had our chiefs meeting in Clackamas County yesterday. That is just a phenomenal group. Anytime any agency in that group needs help, assistance, resources, say Oktoberfest here in Sandy, resources can get tapped, right? We've got the ability to call Clackamas County or even OSP and say, hey, could you throw us a couple bodies to help us out with traffic or whatever. That's what I enjoy the most out of my career, working with people.
So what do you, so what do you see as the role of the police chief in the city and in the community? How do you plan to fill that role here in Sandy, and what will be your approach to help bring the community together?
I've been search Google for what a chief actually does after working for the state police for 25 years, right? But basically, to keep it simple, you're in charge of the department. You're now responsible for everything that happens within that agency. If one of the officers does something, you're responsible for that, okay, good or bad. You're responsible working with the city manager and the city council to solve problems within your community. But biggest and foremost is we serve the community, okay? So we have to listen. We have to understand your expectations of our department, right? And if we're not doing that, we're failing. So the best way to do that is just to get out in the community and ask questions, right? See what's working for the community, see what the community wants. I think everybody in this room knew I was a finalist before I knew I was finalist for this job. And my phone started blowing up and I couldn't figure out why, because I was getting a few phone calls from local people that I know here in the community. And, I went ahead and was like, well, I'm doing this writing assignment. What are your concerns? So, just listen. So some of the concerns already were, the city has grown so much in the last few years, but the size of the department really hasn't. So I think a lot of community members would like to see more officers. Another concern was property crime rising in the area. And I haven't looked at the numbers. I don't have access to the Clackamas County Sandy numbers, but I would venture to guess, and this is the same in a lot of cities in our Clackamas area, the crimes aren't being committed by the people that live here.
Locals, exactly.
Right? So there's ways to combat that. And I know I'm a trooper, right? So what I do is traffic stops, right? That's my bread and butter in my current job. But an active traffic enforcement program is key and has been proven throughout the United States to deter crime. And I think what I would try to look at is maybe pushing our officers out to the perimeter of our cities a little bit more and start patrolling those city and county roads a little bit more and interdicting that criminal behavior before it gets into the city limits. And that's easy to do because a lot of the folks that are doing that are driving stolen cars, they're driving without licenses, no insurance, and guess what? If you tow their car en route to a crime, they can't get there. If you take them back to jail, they can't get there, right? So we have tools, and we just need to figure out what resources we have and just try to do that a little bit more. And there's all kinds of training, and there's a lot of agencies out there that are really good at criminal interdiction, and it doesn't take much to ask another agency to come in and train your officers in something that maybe they're just not yet used to doing. So another problem that I heard was maybe a little bit more patrol activity around our parks. Drug activity in those parks around our kids is a huge concern. It's really easy to throw a couple officers on a bike, which is pretty cheap. You can get a bike pretty cheap. You can go to a lot of different bike training, and maybe just have an opportunity to run some bike patrol in some of those areas. Bikes are easy to hide. They're very successful, and there's just a lot of things that we can look at doing with the resources we have without minimal additional cost to the city.
Thank you. That's Patrick Husky. And next up is Doug Shoemaker.
First, good morning. Happy National Donut Day. I think they literally planned this on purpose for us, so I'm not sure what it's about. But it's a pleasure to be standing in front of all of you, and first, thanks first and foremost, for coming out. The fact that you're here means you care about your police department. That certainly shows, and so thanks for that. My name's Doug Shoemaker, and I've been in policing for a little over 33 years. So I've seen a few things, exactly. I've seen a few things in that time, and have been really privileged to get to know a lot of different folks and have had some fantastic mentors in my career. And for that, I'm very, very thankful. I started my career after graduating with a degree in English Lit. I know you're all like, what's that about? But it's just something I did. And I went to the Jefferson City, Missouri Police Department, the state capital, Missouri. I was there for roughly 26 and a half years, almost. And I went through every rank in the organization, all the way to the number 2 position, and I was the senior captain for about 10 years. I also was the public information officer for that department. One day the chief said, hey, we need a PIO. Would you mind doing it? I said, I don't know about that. And he says, thanks for volunteering. And then I did it, and it was one of those other duties as assigned for about 10 years. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed everything that I got to do, whether it was supervising a narcotics task force, overseeing investigations, traffic, community relations, all those different types of things. But I enjoyed that ability to get out in the community and get to know people, and then really grow with the department as well. So it was an exciting time. It soon became apparent after a while that he was not going to retire. And we had a real good conversation. He was a fantastic mentor, and he said, look, if you want to take that next step, how can I help you, and what's that look like for you? I appreciated that approach, because I think we need a little bit more of that in this profession anyway. And so I said, well, I'm going to start looking, and he gave me some advice, and I ended up in 2018 in Grand Junction, Colorado. Western side of the state. If you've never been to that area, it's nowhere near Denver, in case you're curious. It's the opposite side of the state from Denver. It's high desert, but a lot of great outdoor activities, a lot of fun things that you can do there, and a very well-respected police department. So was there for 4.5 years, led a department, and made major decisions through some pretty serious times in policing. I was the chief during COVID. I was the chief during George Floyd. And then I was a chief during some legislation that passed in the state of Colorado that was the most damaging legislation in the entire United States that took away what's called qualified immunity from our peace officers. We were the first state in the country to do that. Not a fan, and it did not do good things for our cops. But we had a good culture, and we stood through it, and we stood by our cops, and we worked to get through that despite some of those challenges, and we pushed forward. And out of 143 sworn, we lost 1. Not bad, considering that this legislation that came through was really challenging and would actually penalize officers civilly for $20,000 out of their own personal bank account for every perceived Fourth Amendment violation they had to deal with. So it was a tough time, but as chief, I made those decisions and I worked through it. And we developed that culture, and we made sure that our officers were resilient and strong throughout, because I think you need strong, resilient cops to do the job. Left, had a death in the family, moved to Texas to get a little closer to family at the time, and went to Denton, was there for a short while, was able to in that time really do some pretty serious work to build that culture and do some things we'd never done before, and really enjoy that part of this work. I'm lucky that I work with some really great people. I've had some fantastic mentors. I work with a guy by the name of Simon Sinek, and we work on a group of initiatives called The Curve, and so you will find that I'm very much an optimist. I'm always an optimist in what I do. I always believe that despite the negative social media and all the terrible things that you see out there, people are good, and I believe in that bringing out that good in people and working with folks to accomplish that. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be here and in front of you this morning. I don't know what the questions are yet, though, so.
So why are you interested in the police chief position here in Sandy, and why is Sandy the right place for you?
So it's interesting. My wife and I are very involved in a lot of outdoor activities. We love to hike. We love being outdoors. This is a beautiful area. I've been to Oregon twice for the Oregon Police Chiefs Conference. I work with the International Association of Chiefs of Police. I'm the 3rd vice president. So I've had the good fortune of meeting different organizations throughout the entire country, and coming to Oregon, usually in Bend, where that conference is always really, truly an honor to be out there. And so I've gotten to know some great people. Sandy's unique in that you're a smaller town, and I grew up, my high school was in a town of 13,000. So I've grown through smaller towns, and knowing people within the community is something that I loved. and getting to know different personalities and people and hearing what concerns are, and getting to know an agency this size, the intimacy of the agency because of that size allows you to really get to know the people that you work with, your colleagues. I'm a big believer as police chief that I work for the people that I supervise, I say air quotes with that, as much as they work for me. So I have that level of responsibility that I have to be out there, I have to be doing the things, I have to be working hard for them, just like I expect them to work hard for me. So you've got a very strong police department with a very good reputation. And I'm going to tell you, working with the number of organizations I do with across the country, not every police organization has that reputation. They just don't. So you're fortunate in that you have some really great police professionals here that are doing the job, but they're very fortunate to have your support. So regardless of what happens through this process, I would just ask you to continue to support them because they need it, because this is really still a very tough time in policing. It's a beautiful area, a lot of opportunities, a lot of chances to get to grow the organization, help build people out, figure out what they want to do with their careers, and evolve to that next level of policing. And again, I'm an eternal optimist, so I think it's important.
Please tell us a little bit about your last job. What did you enjoy about it the most, and how did you decide now is the right time to move on to a new opportunity?
So I was, we've got like a side bet, so who would lose first, so hoping I don't lose. So for me, it's, I left the Denton Police Department and I worked in Grand Junction for 4.5 years as chief before. To me, it's about fit. It is all about finding the fit of an organization, and sometimes jobs might look great, and sometimes they don't work out as well as you'd like because of culture. And culture within a police organization is absolutely key. During the time that I was in Denton and Grand Junction, we were able to accomplish some things that we had never done before. First, recruiting. We completely revamped how we branded ourselves to the people that were going to become our future colleagues, our future employees. And we looked at what they expected from us. We looked at what they wanted out of their career, and we changed how we approach that to make it much more personal, to make sure we got the person with the right heart and mind for the job, because you need that in policing today. You have to have that in this role. So we looked at that recruiting piece, we looked at retention, why do people come, why do people stay, and then what motivates them to go to that next level, and what's that look like for their career within the organization. All these things are very important. So we started taking some positive steps. Neither agency had a strategic plan, neither agency had a succession plan. And so as we looked at those opportunities to say, what can we do to make sure that we have a vision moving forward and that we're all on the same page with that vision, we did it together. And we did it a little backwards, which I think worked out really well, in that we built our strategic plan from the ground up. And we involved people at all levels within the organization to hear their voices, which I think is very, very important, to say what direction do we want to go, and we involved the community in that too. So I think those types of opportunities are important. We also brought the highest level of training within the organization. We've never, ever in the history of the Denton Police Department hosted a Northwestern University School of Police Staff and Command. There are 3 major police command schools in the United States: the FBI, SPI, which is Southern Police Institute in Louisville, Kentucky, and then Northwestern. And for the first time, we brought in Northwestern to the organization. We did that with growth in mind for our personnel. Our sergeants, our lieutenants, our deputy chiefs got to go right in their own backyard to the highest of the high level of command type of school. We also brought in the LEDA, the FBI LEDA. It's a law enforcement executive development program, 3 different classes, and that starts actually pretty soon and goes through 2025. So these are opportunities for our folks to do something. And the last piece that I think I really want to brush on, is probably the most important piece, is the wellness piece. Because I don't think we're doing a good job at all in this profession for the most part. We lose too many cops to suicide, and it's something I'm personally very passionate about. And wellness of our women and men that are out there doing the job has got to be taken seriously internally within an organization, and taking those next steps for wellness has to be priority. So we said, we're not just going to talk about it, we're going to do something about it. So we started bringing people with me to the International Police Chiefs Conference on Wellness, which was in California last year. It was just in Louisville, Kentucky this year, to really learn new strategies about how do we do it better. Because maybe there's some ways out there that we can absolutely do this that much better. And so people brought those back, and we conducted an internal wellness survey. What's wellness mean to you? What's it mean to you? Is it spiritual? Is it financial? Is it physical? What's that look like to you? So ask the questions, and then we learn. But without asking the questions, I'm never going to know. Peer support team in Grand Junction, ours was one of the best in the state and became one of the best in the country. Something I'm extremely proud of, that our team presented on a national stage in front of all the ICP annual conference folks, about 16,000 attendees in total to that conference, about what peer support looks like for a police organization. I'm proud of that, not because I did it, but because the people I worked with stepped up and did the thing, and man, I'll put them on a stage all day. So I was pretty proud of that.
What do you see as the role of the police chief in the city and in the community? How do you plan to fill that role here in Sandy? And what will be your approach to help bring the community together?
It's interesting. The community relations piece is always kind of at the center of everything in so many ways. And it's not just with the officers, the women and men that go out and do the job, make the contacts, all the things. Because let's be honest, when we talk about policing, and you'll find that I don't care for the term law enforcement, and here's why I don't like the term. Because when people call us law enforcement, that says that's all we do. But actually, law enforcement is just this little bit of what we do. Policing is the umbrella under which law enforcement resides, because it's one small part of what we do. But most of the things that we go to, the daily calls for service, have nothing to do with law enforcement. They have to do with quality of life. They have to do with issues in the community. And more often than not, we see people on their worst days. People don't call us, they don't call 911 when they win the lottery. That doesn't happen. 911, what's your emergency? I just won $1,000 and whatever else. It doesn't happen. They call us when they deal with some sort of personal loss. They've been in a car crash. They've had their house burglarized. They've come home to a family member who's committed suicide. These are real things. And we are tasked with the responsibility of responding to that and making that pain a little less and doing it in a way that's professional, ethical, and honorable. And so for us, this is a big task. So working with the community to know what they expect out of us is something that I think is absolutely essential. And in my career, I've been involved with a lot of organizations within the community. Chambers of Commerce, very involved with Chambers of Commerce, United Way, Boys and Girls Club, something that's very close and near to my heart, to the point where when I did my doctorate work, I did 3-year study on the number of kids going into the juvenile system. And we used that research to get a $500,000 grant from the state to start a diversion program to try and keep kids out of the juvenile system and on the right path. Because I don't believe in giving up. It's the optimism thing for me. So I think there's opportunities to do things. There's always opportunities to look to the next level. There's always things to do that keep us moving forward, but we have to do it with you. The police department can't do it alone. It's impossible. The community has to be involved to help. So thank you.
That's Doug Shoemaker. So, you want to say a few words? I'm just going to say we have about 15 minutes left. This is, it is truly an informal meet and greet, so please go talk to the candidates about what they just spoke about. Ask them other questions, get to know them a little bit. And please, thanks for coming. Tyler, did you want to wrap up? Stay by.
Thank you, everyone. As Tim mentioned, we got about 15 minutes. We do have a pretty firm 10 o'clock stop time, so we can keep on schedule throughout the rest of the day with interviews and tours of the police department and staff meet and greet. Thank you for your time this morning. We really appreciate it, and I'm happy to answer any questions also. If you have anything for me, I'll be probably towards that thorough. Thank you.